Mums with Hustle podcast, episode 500. Woohoo! Let's go. Oh my gosh, episode 500. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Mums with Hustle podcast, where you'll discover everyday mum entrepreneurs killing it in their industry. Learn the secrets you can replicate to create your own success with your host, Tracy Harris.
In today's episode, I'm going to be answering some questions, some of your questions and questions that I receive in the DMs, largely about growing an online membership or about some of the difficulties that I've had to overcome in growing my business over the past 10 years, and even a question about, family and friends and support and how do I navigate all of that. There's also a question about boundaries in business. So I thought, why not just sit down and answer some of these questions and share it with you here on the podcast. So let's get into it. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Mums with Hustle podcast. I'm your host and mentor and friend, Tracy Harris, and every single Monday, these episodes come out for you. And they're a way to nourish you and support you as you build your business online, your way, giving yourself the freedom to be uniquely you. And sometimes the episodes are inspiring. Sometimes the episodes are sharing strategy. Sometimes it's sharing behind the scenes of my business. Sometimes I bring on guests, people from my own mentorships or my peers, and we deep dive into topics that are relevant to growing a freedom-filled business. So today, I thought, why not get behind the mic and answer some of the questions that you ladies send in, not just recently, but frequently over the years. And one of those subjects is all about online memberships. And so I wanted to just, begin with, what is the difference between a membership and an online course? Because a lot of people get stuck there. So an online course really is where there's a very clear beginning and a very clear end. Some online courses are done cohort style, and there is support in terms of you as the coach or the mentor, the facilitator. You're there for the duration of that course or that program running. And then there's a very clear end, usually some kind of celebration or closing the loop or graduation party or whatever you want to call it. It's like the course time has ended, the support has gone away. That's the most typical structure. So a course is perfect for people who do have a very clear outcome that they want to get people to. And, there's a course outline, and however you get people to that outcome is essentially up to you as the educator, because you're an adult educator. When you create an online course, that's what you are. An adult educator, trainer, and facilitator, coach, mentor, all of those things. So how you design that experience, that would just be a whole other episode. But essentially, you're getting someone from A to B, right? Within a certain time period. It could be an online course that they just binge, self-paced also. Or if it's that cohort style, then it would be an online course where it's almost like a class going through this together with your guidance and support, or guidance and support from your team or fellow coaches that you employ or bring in to the course program. But yes, there's a clear transformation and there's a clear deadline for when that live cohort experience is over. Maybe or maybe not, you include lifetime access to the course materials so that once your presence and support there has ended or is removed, they can still access the material for as long as that program is alive. Okay. You just may need to create a different way to support those people if they do get stuck. Now, I'm not going to dive into that today, but essentially that's what an online course is. Something with a clear transformation and like an outcome. Done. Now, an online membership is different. Because in an online membership, people get to stay for as long as they want access to whatever it is that you offer. So this could be that you offer education and training. It could be that you offer a community. It could be that you offer access to guest experts. It could be that you offer access to templates and done-for-yous or coaching. It could be so many things. Okay, there's the longest list ever of possible deliverables for a highly effective online membership. So we won't talk about deliverables here. We're going to keep the conversation to, well, what is an online membership? An online membership is something that people sign up to, and typically they can sign up for a year and get access to everything for a year. And then when that year is over, they will be invited to renew and remain inside of the membership. Or they can sign up and pay month to month. Or maybe it's a membership where people pay quarterly. Again, all of that is going to be up to you. But they have access to everything for as long as they are a member in good standing. So if you think about real life memberships, like a gym, for instance, that's a form of a membership. Or one of my mentees in my Inner Circle mastermind, she has a tanning salon, but it's using a membership model because people typically want to be able to get a tan weekly, or her clientele does. So she's making it be really easy and convenient for them to just pay a flat monthly fee or an annual fee, and then they can come in and use all the facilities and get, a tan every single week or as often as they like. And, it's done. It's paid. So whether you're serving business owners or whether you're serving regular consumers, like in the case of the tanning salon, a membership model is brilliant if you are solving an ongoing need or if you are teaching people something that needs regular coaching, implementation support. And it's not just, okay, I'm going to give you the information like an online course and then the support is going to disappear. Some of you right now are feeling like, okay, an online membership makes the most sense for me and for my customers. And some of you are feeling like, okay, no, I think I'm looking at an online course because they really do just need to come in, learn this essential stuff, have some implementation time, and then at the end of a period, let's say at the end of 8 weeks, it's done or they've got their certification or whatever it might be, and then they can move on. They don't really need ongoing access to the community. They don't really need ongoing access to you or to your team or to your coaches to be able to implement. Or maybe that's just not how the structure and the model that you want to have. The beauty, I will say, about having an online membership is that it does give you recurring revenue, and you can do a launch or bring members in and you can project how much money your business is going to be bringing in over a longer period of time. And that is really helpful because it helps you budget in your business or know what cash flow is going to be like. So, other areas that you can invest in your business as you grow. It just also gives you amazing peace of mind and stability. And who doesn't love that? It's also really lovely that you're not starting every single month with 0 sales and then going out and having to sell products like one-to-one. It's like you've already sold that product to someone and they're in there month after month. So instead of starting, the success is compounding. Instead of starting every single month at 0, you might have 10 members paying $1,000 each per month to be in your membership, or maybe $100 each to be in your membership, whatever. At the beginning of every new month, you already know how much revenue you're bringing in. And so any new members that you bring in on top of that is just adding to that monthly recurring revenue. So it's compounding, and it's very clever to have at least one form of recurring revenue in your business. I don't care what type of business you have. it makes a huge difference to know that if you sold nothing else all month long, you are at a minimum locked in at $50,000 a month or $100,000 a month or whatever it might be. Can you imagine how freedom-filled that feels? It is a game changer. So anyway, I'm a fan of both. Courses have their place and their purpose, and you can have wild success with online courses. And memberships are fantastic, okay? So they're both awesome. But yes, they are different. So having a little look at some of the questions that I have that have been asked of me in various places. One of the questions is, let me find a membership question because I started right there. Okay. Someone asked about the importance of maintaining boundaries. And in particular, this person says, I'm specifically talking about members reaching out at all hours of the day/night. Wow. Okay. Now, this is actually a really common question, and that's why I wanted to answer it here on the podcast, because when you have an online membership and when people don't know how to ask their questions or where they can ask their questions, sometimes they will just send you a DM on Instagram, especially if you've really got a relationship with your Instagram audience, like you've built a community and people are used to just speaking to you in the DMs. Like maybe that is a culture that you've created intentionally or not. And maybe people are used to that. Okay. So they're coming now, like for the first time you've launched this membership and they're coming now and they're just messaging you questions or they're emailing you questions. But really what you want them to do is still to ask that question, but in the most appropriate place. So I'm always saying the obstacle is the way, or the problem is also the solution. Okay. Like what are your people telling you that they want or that they need you to put in place? So when you create an online membership, you need to create structure and you need to create boundaries and you need to create containers and almost like the ground rules. People want to do the right thing, but you just need to tell them how to do it. So I don't believe, first and foremost, that people are just trying to take advantage of you or, they're not respecting you. There can be a lot of resentment out there, especially when you have a low-cost membership on purpose, because it's a strategy to have one. But you got a low-cost membership and now let's just say people are paying $57 a month and they're just sending their questions, they're acting like you are their personal guru and coach and they're sending you questions in the DMs. And it starts to feel frustrating. What do you do? This is a very, very common experience. I've experienced this. I generally experience this every single time I do an intake into my Social Method Society, which is my membership for women who are wanting to use Instagram to grow and scale their digital businesses. But it really always just comes down to people not knowing where they should be asking. Like that's all that it is. So we need to be looking at everybody through the lens of love and no one's out to get you. Okay. So that's the first thing. Responding with something like, and you don't even have to respond immediately. I'm just going to throw that out there too. You can be so hypervigilant and stressed and overwhelmed that someone's messaged and now like you don't have the infrastructure to have a customer service team getting back to people at all hours. And so you might be feeling stretched really thin between the membership and other things that you have going on in your business and your Instagram marketing or, oh my gosh, did you record a podcast or write an email newsletter this week? And now you got this person sending you a message and do they expect you to get back to them instantly? This is the reason why we need to have clear structure and a clear container for how to ask your questions. And in what time can you expect a response? And people just want to know what to do. People do want to do the right thing. So let's just say someone sends you a DM and they've asked a question. What you could do, let's just say the next day you go into your DMs because you're not going to open up your DMs at 9 o'clock at night, let's say 10 p.m. at night, you can just open your DMs and reply within business hours. And you can say, thank you so much for your question. I'm going to answer this, but I just ask that you pop this into, now let's pretend that you've got a questions thread inside of your membership community, or let's pretend that you've got a hashtag that when people submit a question into your community, they use this hashtag. Let's just pretend it's hashtag coaching question or hashtag Q&A, and whatever it might be. You tell them what it is. You give them away. It could be a thread. It could be a hashtag. It could be that once a week you do a live coaching call and you answer any questions asked throughout the week, but they need to know how to submit it. Maybe you've set up an online form. Maybe you're going to drop them a link to that online form. And that's what you're going to do in the DMs. You're going to thank them for the question and redirect them to the best place to put that. Or you can say, I'll take this question and I'll make sure that I add it to the agenda for our upcoming Q&A. The next time you can pre-submit your question here and then drop them a link, or just educate them. Let them know what is the right process for next time. And you're going to find that people are going to be so happy to know, okay, cool, thank you so much. And maybe they'll apologize, they don't need to, but maybe they'll be like, oh, sorry, I wasn't sure that that's the way that I need to ask a question. Thank you for getting back to me. Looking forward to the Q&A. Like, you're just going to find that people are kind and gracious. You are. Now, if this happens to you, if you start getting quite a lot of this is happening, this is an indicator to you that your members don't know how to get their questions answered. So it's an opportunity for you to look at your onboarding processes into your course or into your membership, and for you to add in a lesson there, or I don't know, a post, an onboarding post, if they're coming into a Facebook group, for instance, that they must go through, and then indicate that they've gone through it. Maybe they need to leave a comment or a particular emoji if it's in Facebook to show that they've read this. But they're going to go through or click through to the next lesson where they are onboarded. But part of that onboarding experience is to also let people know what they've got access to, how can they get a question answered. And so, if you're getting a regular amount of people sending questions, reaching out for personal one-on-one, that's how you may perceive what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. It's very, very few people that are trying to do that. It's just that they didn't know how to ask. So you're going to redirect them, and I'm willing to bet they're not going to do that again, because they just want to do the right thing by you and everybody else. And then you're going to go into your community and you're going to actually look at the customer experience, and you're going to ask yourself, okay, why is this not clear to my people? How can I make this be more clear to them? How can I let them know in a loving way that this is how they can ask, and also this is when they can expect? Are you checking the group every day? If you're not, that's okay. Tell them when. Are you going to collate all questions asked on the wall and answer them once a week? Just let them know. Okay, so that is that question about boundaries when people are sneaking into the DMs. They're not even sneaking. They're just looking for a helping hand. So when they're coming to you in the DMs, that's what you do, okay? You don't need to get stuck there being in a complete stress response. Okay. Someone else asked, what strategies have worked best for me to generate leads in this business? The strategy that has worked the best has always been, for me, live launching. Like having a live launch, whether it has been a challenge launch, I've done those, or whether it has been a webinar launch, I've done those for years. They always build my list rapidly. And so that's probably been my number one list builder. but also my Instagram stories strategy pack. I don't even know how many thousands upon thousands of people have opted in for that, but that is probably one of my longest running freebies. And so that I just know so many of you listening to this episode have downloaded that. That is where I shared my Instagram stories framework that helped me sell $2,000 with a single story. Now, I've sold way more than that using Instagram stories over the past 10 years. But I know that for the large majority of people, selling something around the value of $2,000 from a single set of Instagram stories was actually more, relatable, more achievable, more imaginable. And so I just took a very narrow message, and those of you that are in my Freedom Filled business and in my Social Method Society and my mastermind, you know that niching your message or coming up with a very clear $1 million message is the framework that I teach, really attracts more people. So narrowing that message, having a very clear $1 million message, it's like, take the Instagram stories framework that I use to sell or that I use to make $2,000 from a single Instagram story. That was the hook on that one. And people wanted to know, because if you could do it once to sell to a $2,000 product, it's something that you can do over and over and over again. And it works to sell pretty much anything. So I don't know how many people downloaded that in total, but that was probably my most effective list builder that was not a live launch. So there you go. On to the next question. Someone asked, can I recall a mistake that I've made in my business and the biggest learning that came from it, which has led to success? First of all, I love that they're asking for the learning that led to success, because I know it sounds so corny and cliche, but I don't believe in failure or making mistakes anymore. Like, I just don't. And the old me, up until about the age of 30, I really did. Like, I was a textbook perfectionist. I would avoid doing things that were going to lead to growth because I was afraid that if I didn't reach that goal, or if I didn't get the grade at school, or if I didn't get in the top 5, or if I didn't get an academic award for that subject at the end of year, or whatever it might be, that was worse than going for it and actually learning something. So I would intentionally shrink myself. And I did this at school. I did this at the gym. Like, rather than fully going for it, I would just play small. I would do what I knew I could achieve. So that was me, like, coming into business at 30. I'm now 41. And I can tell you that I truly don't believe in any failures or mistakes. Everything really is there to point to our next area for growth and expansion. Everything really is there to be our biggest teacher. We do not learn from the times when things are easy or working. We don't learn from the times where we got what we wanted. We learn from the times when we did fail, when it was hard, when we did make a mistake. And I'm using that in air quotes. They are our biggest teachers all the time. But most of us want to run away from those, or we let embarrassment and shame come over us instead of like doubling down into it and scooping up the lessons. So anyway, that's my little take on that. I just love the way that this person asked their question. So what are some decisions that I made or things that I ignored that then went on to become my biggest lessons, my biggest teachers? The first one, and I've shared this on the podcast before, it was the time that I fired my first VA. I just should have done that way sooner. I really should have done that way sooner, but I was in my people-pleasing era. I was giving way too many chances. I was thinking that character could be taught. I was thinking that you could teach someone values, like to have the same values held at the same level of importance as where you and your company holds them. No, it's not to say that individuals don't have values. They've just got values placed in a different order to what you do. And so when someone, what's that Maya Angelou saying? When someone shows you who they are, listen, because that's who they are. And, skills can be taught, knowledge can be given, but character and values, you can't change those. So when someone shows you who they are, listen. And early stage entrepreneur Tracy was not listening. So I kept her on for way too long. So that was my lesson there. And it was wonderful because through that experience, I haven't done that again. In fact, we've just had to say goodbye to a couple of team members this year, and it's never easy, but it's really important to have the right people in the right seats. And it's important to have people that can come into the next vision or version of your business, people that evolve and grow with you is so important. So I've learned from the lessons of having the wrong people and for having people for longer than they should be there. So that's one. And then the other one, I'm like, oh, damn, I should have spent more on Facebook ads back in the day when it was just so cheap. Leads were so cheap. I'm talking like in 2016, I think that's when I started doing Facebook ads. And I remember everyone in the industry saying, Facebook ads are never going to be this cheap again. Like, this really is the time. Invest as much as you can in like building a list or in your launches or whatever. And I think at the time I felt like I was spending a lot, but I really didn't have. Well, I did actually. I did have my launch debriefs and I did have the data in front of me that told me if you spend this much and it's going to get you this many leads. And what you do know about your funnel, Tracy, is that of the leads that you bring into the funnel, this percentage buys. And I had that data and I was still scared. I was still very, very conservative. So yes, I was doing ads, but the budget was small. I can't remember how small at the moment. Maybe it was like $3,000 to begin with. And then maybe it went to like $8,000 and for a whole campaign. And then it wasn't until I joined a high-level mastermind that I was sitting next to people that were spending $100,000 on ads for a single launch. And then it made me just feel like I was being such a baby about it. And it called me out of that, again, playing small, being a perfectionist, being afraid of failure, and it called me forward. And so, that was being in a mastermind where it was just normalized and where people were growing like grown-up businesses. It made me grow up very, very quickly from being there. So I am a huge believer in placing yourself in an environment where people are calling you forward and playing a bigger game, because otherwise, left to your own devices, you're just going to keep playing small, or you're going to match the people around you. And if the people around you are talking small, thinking small, acting small, then you really do become the average of the 5 people that you're spending time with. So you need to get a new circle. You need to buy into a whole new mastermind or friendship group or whatever it is. But otherwise, you do end up assimilating to the group and the level and the standard of everyone around you. And that definitely was the case for me. So not spending enough on Facebook ads in those early days, but I'm grateful that I then put myself in a high-level mastermind where people called me forward on that. Someone else asked a question about support, and it was, have you always had support from close family and friends? Or in the beginning, did people think that you were crazy to be attempting to set up your own business? Absolutely, people thought I was crazy. I have a very loving family, and so no, they did not understand what I was doing. You need to understand that this took place 10 years ago also. People's understanding and even comprehension, like just online business is now so normal. It is so normal. Online education, courses, memberships, podcasts. Like when I started here in Australia, podcasts 10 years ago, there were very, very few Australian podcasts. And I think it was just myself and one other podcast that spoke to mums in business. That's it. That podcast no longer exists either. So that was short-lived. And then for many years, I was the only one. Like the online space has grown and changed so much. And like as thousands and thousands of women in business have come through my programs, they've all started podcasts too. They've all started memberships. They've all started courses. They're all launching masterminds. They're all having retreats. It's really lovely and wonderful now. So I feel like back in the day, I did feel like a freak and a lone wolf, and trying to explain to people that I was leaving my traditional job of teaching to start an online business where I would have a podcast. People first and foremost were like, what's a podcast? That's what they would say. What's a podcast? So I had to explain that. And then I would say, and I'm going to have an online course where I teach people how to market their businesses using Instagram. People were like, what's Instagram in 2015? Okay, it hadn't been around for very long. Facebook was very much the place to be. And people were also like, what's an online course? Yeah. How are you going to sell this thing? What do you mean? Like, it was such new territory. So yes, I had their loving support, but not from a place of them understanding at all what I was doing. It was more of a, oh, are you sure? Okay, well, I guess you better look after your own mental health. And if that means leaving work because that was taking its toll, that burnout there was real, then I just want the best for you. That's pretty much how it was. I just want the best for you. But did they understand it? Did they believe it was possible? Not really, because they didn't even understand what an online course was or what a membership was or what a podcast was. It just all sounded, it just was not tangible, you know? So, I remember one particular friend was really worried. She was just like, it's a very big decision. Like, are you sure that's wise? Like maybe you should just, if you're not happy at the school that you're at, and it's causing you stress, maybe you should just go to another school. And that was her response when I said, I'm leaving and I'm going to start an online business and this is what I'm going to do, And so I think that's a very natural response when someone isn't informed or they don't really know. Like people tend to fear what they don't know. And everyone's concern at the time was because they had my best interest at heart. They did. So, I chose to not get offended. If I ever did get a response that didn't really seem like they thought it was a smart idea, or if anyone used phrasing like, how's your little business going? Like definitely people used to say things like that. I would just say it's going really well, thanks. I just always kept it positive. It's going really well. How's work going for you? But I wasn't ever going to make their lack of understanding, or even if they did I guess, judge it or say anything negative, like they're not doing what I'm doing. So I don't take on board advice from people who aren't succeeding at the thing that I want to do, you know? They weren't ever haters. I know there's that saying, I think David Goggins says, you'll never find a hater doing better than you. I didn't have any family and friends that I'd put into the category of a hater. But, you know, again, it's like if they're a naysayer, it really is just because they don't understand what you're trying to do, or because they couldn't imagine doing it themselves, or because they really have your best interest at heart. And 10 years ago especially, it was less common to quit a traditional job and move into online business. So I just had to believe in myself, and I had to ask God for courage just to keep moving forward in a space that felt like there really weren't many people, certainly in Australia at the time, doing what I was doing, where I could go and have a conversation. There were a lot of service-based businesses. That was different. But yeah, not many people with podcasts or online education programs like I had at the time. So I just had to focus on my why, and that's what got me through that period. Okay, last question for this episode. Someone asked, how do I manage the emotional roller coaster of business? Perhaps you could share a specific morning or evening routine that impacts positively on your business. I actually have more than a routine. It's my fresh framework. And every single letter of fresh stands for something. It's more than a habit. It's more than a daily practice, but they're non-negotiables in my day. And I find that when I'm not practicing all 5 of these, then I'm not fresh. I'm quite literally the opposite. I'm stale. I'm struggling. I'm sluggish. I'm not sharp mentally. And I'm probably not, it's not pleasant to be around me. Like I'm quick to anger, or I'm nitpicking. I'm just not moving forward. So the framework that I teach, and I share this inside of my Freedom Filled Business, is actually a bonus course in there on fresh. And F stands for fitness. There's always some kind of intentional movement, either to do with strength or mobility or cardiovascular health. Like there's fitness happening every day. Then there's R, which is for relationships. Our relationships matter, and they only grow when they're nurtured. And sometimes our businesses can just feel like, I even hear people say, my business is my baby. I get what you're saying. I get it. But it's not your actual baby. Like a lot of you have literal babies. I've got literal babies. And so what are we doing to intentionally create a beautiful relationship with our children, for those of us that have children, or with our spouses, or with our extended family, or with our friends and our neighbors? Like, what are we doing to be in good relationship with the people that we say we love? Doing something to nurture those relationships every single day. Little things. The next one is E, which stands for environment and energy. So being really consciously aware of the environment and the energy that you choose to put yourself in. And sometimes it needs an upgrade. So reflecting on where you are leaking energy. And someone asked a boundaries question, you know, if you're leaking energy, having conversations, one-on-one coaching conversations in the DMs, when really that question is supposed to be asked inside of your community, that is an energetic leak. Okay, so we've got to plug that. An environment, like if you are hanging around naysayers or people that are playing small and you're spending more time there, instead of placing yourself in a container where maybe people are ahead of you, maybe that's going to call you forward. Place yourself there. Stop saying you're not ready to go there. Put yourself there and watch what happens. That's environment. Put yourself in an environment that is a match for your future self. It's a big one. The next one is S, and that stands for self. That's all of your self-development. It is self-care. It's like, what are you doing to become a better leader, a better person? What are you doing to nourish yourself? It could be small acts of self-care, like having a bath. It could be that you read a chapter of a book today and then you took some time to journal your thoughts on whatever you read. Like, what are you doing to intentionally grow yourself? And then the final one is your hustle. That's your work. We all have work that we're called to do in our business, in our work, in our mission, And that's our hustle. That's our work, So what are you doing to move your business forward? Just one small thing. And sometimes it is rest. Sometimes it is white space because your hustle doesn't have to look hideous. It's in your control. And we forget that sometimes. So that's fresh. And that really has been the biggest, number one thing that supports me at all times in my business. And I am staying fresh regardless of the busyness of life and the busyness of business. So say if things pick up and it's like a really busy time, let's just say it's the launch period or something like that. I used to be that person in the early years of business that was not keeping fresh. I would be like, oh, we're busy. I guess I can't be doing any of my exercise or, my self-care can wait. And for me, that was already there when I was a teacher. I used to reward myself with acts of self-care instead of always making that come as a non-negotiable. I would wait for the school holidays to be able to get a massage. I would wait for the school holidays to go and get my hair done. I'd wait for the school holidays. Like it was almost like I had to earn it. But now I'm very much of the opinion that like, no, we be fresh first. And when you're fresh, you do your best thinking. You do your best work. But you got to be fresh in order to be free. So that is, I think, the best morning/evening/life routine that impacts positively on my business. So I hope that you loved this episode where I answer a bunch of your questions. If you did love it, please let me know and maybe submit a question. You can email us hello@mumswithhustle.com and we can add your question to the list for a future podcast, but I'd love to help you. And if you are looking to move forward in your business, you can go to socialmethodsociety.com if you're wanting to focus on your Instagram marketing and visibility and using content as a funnel to turn followers into customers. And if you are wanting to build a digital education product like a course or a membership or a coaching program, you can head to freedomfulbusiness.com and apply to come and join us inside of that program. And I'll personally review your application and get back to you. But that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me. Stay happy in your hustle, and I'll catch you on the next episode.